What's up, good people? Thank you for tuning in again. It's Brian back again with a conversation on Tuesday with a real hardcore topic this week. God and CWP, concealed weapons permit. And I asked it as a question, should clergy carry weapons? But it's more of, what does this mean for clergy to carry weapons? And today we got Reverend Raymond Glover, Reverend Dr. Raymond Glover on with us. And he's going to give you some of his background. And then we're going to go into a conversation and have this real talk about what it means to be a concealed weapons, have concealed weapons permit and be theologically sound. So, Dr. Raymond, Dr. Glover,
Yes.
I'll let you just go ahead and share with the people your background and some of the other things that kind of give you a greater insight to this topic.
Okay, very good. Well, I appreciate you inviting me on this show. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Reverend Dr. Glover, I have my BS degree in mass communications. I have a master's in guidance and counseling from the University of Montevallo, Alabama. That's where I'm from, Alabama. Grew up in Montgomery, and I actually started my police career at the campus of the University of Montevallo. There for about 3 years, and went to the city of Hoover, which is a suburb of Birmingham, Alabama. I was there for about 5 years. And I left there, and I became a special agent under the United States Department of Justice Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Farms, and Explosives, better known as ATF. Moved to Columbia, South Carolina, under the Charlotte Field Division, where I was a criminal investigator. And my last, I think, 6 years, I was division operation officer for the Charlotte. Have a total 34-year law enforcement. And in 2019, I received my doctorate degree from Covington Theological Seminary in theology. So a quick background on me and my background.
Cool. Appreciate it.
I'm sorry. I'm a present priest, ordained priest in the African American Catholic congregation. We're an independent Catholic church. We're totally independent from Rome. So, okay. Yes.
All right. Cool. So what is your, I know we had this conversation, and so a lot of folks weren't privileged to be a part of that conversation. We were talking about something else, and the conversation about concealed weapons and carrying guns came up in this conversation we were having. It was a conversation with a bunch of preachers and pastors, maybe about 10. And
Yes.
Surprisingly, I think the majority of them either had concealed weapons
Yes.
or they still carry weapons. And you said some things that at that moment when that conversation started that I thought was that we needed to hear, and that folks need to hear right now about should religious folk, and whether that's and though we're in the kind of the Christian community, but I'm saying everybody, whether you're Buddhist, Muslim, or whatever, if that's whatever your particular religious affiliation is, what does it mean for that group or any group to carry a weapon? From your perspective, as a pastor and as a 34-year law enforcement officer.
It's really interesting because probably 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said what I'm saying now. I think that certainly in today's time, in today's climate, that's truly important that if you can legally obtain a gun, and if you want to carry a concealed weapon permit, to do so. It's certainly, as a special agent with ATF, that we enforce the federal firearms laws. Anyone can have a gun in their home. So this registration you hear about sometimes, where some of other folks talk about, that's not an issue. You can have a gun in your home, as long as you can legally possess a gun, meaning you're not a convicted felon. You can legally possess a gun in your home with no issues, no problem. There's no national registration like some folks want to make it out to be. Now, in terms of the concealed weapons permit, if you want to carry that gun outside your home on you, in your car, then you would need that concealed weapon permit. And I do recommend that if you can do it, go ahead and do it. And I say this just primarily for self-defense, because I know that, for example, even as a law enforcement officer myself, when I'm off duty, even sometimes I carry my gun, sometimes I didn't. Even now, I can carry my gun by federal law, but sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, because I don't live in fear, going outside my house like we see some people do. So, but I think that if you can legally carry a gun, you want to get a concealed weapon permit, like for self-defense, I think that you should.
What do you think about the new law that's in South Carolina that's probably going to be passed? The constitutional carry, where you don't need a license, all you have to do is carry the gun. Compared to, I live in North Carolina where it's open carry, and if you conceal carry, you have to have a concealed weapons permit. And I lived in, and I actually have a Georgia's concealed weapons permit, and they have open carry as well. But this constitutional carry is a whole lot different. What's your take on that as it relates to the church as well?
Well, this is another live conversation, because now you get into the Second Amendment, because they're based off the Second Amendment. You have a constitutional right to carry a gun. All you have to do, based on it, if they pass that law, based on that law, constitution carry, you can carry a gun. So you don't need to go through have a concealed weapon permit. For example, with the concealed weapon permit, you're going to go through a day or two of training, in a classroom, how to handle a gun. Then you're going to go to a range with an instructor to teach you how to shoot the gun, things like that. With the concealed weapon permit, that's what it's done like that. Constitutional carry means that if they pass that I can go buy a gun, that I can carry it, without any type of training whatsoever. And I think certainly the difference between constitutional carry and the CWP, at least with the CWP, you are getting some training. You are getting information from that instructor on what to do, what to look for. And for example, I observed the class probably about a couple of weeks ago, and the instructor really talked about that you're not necessarily there to try to get them involved in anything else. You want to either back out, de-escalate, and then of course if you push in the corner, so to speak, then you defend yourself. But I'm afraid with the constitutional carry that people are going to use that and the stand your ground law that South Carolina have and really shoot first and ask questions later. And the constitutional carry thing is the Second Amendment. The first, people often talk about the second part of the Second Amendment, the right of people to bear arms, but they don't talk about the first part of it, which is like talk about a well-regulated militia. Then it was the right to bear arms. So I think they mean that, because to me, I don't see how you can just ignore that part of the Second Amendment, talking about a well-regulated militia. And when the Constitution was written, so many years ago, that part is just completely ignored. And I think that people have abused the idea of the second part, just in terms of saying I have a right to carry a gun because of that.
Right.
But the Constitution carry scares me because, I think you can have a lot of people who aren't the store, even if they want to go to events, public events, soda city, things like that, openly carrying a gun, and people are not going to know whether good guy, bad guy, concealed weapon permit or not. And then you got law enforcement officers who will probably get more calls responding to, this guy walking down the street with a gun, which is going to take them away from things that they probably should be doing, as opposed to something like this. So
that's interesting. I think when I first read it, I didn't necessarily have that same feeling. Though I do believe that folks should have some type of training or at least a background check to purchase a weapon. But
I agree.
If people want a weapon, they will get a weapon, whether it's legal or illegal. I just think the going through the process, opens up, different ways to kind of stop some of the madness.
Right.
Do I have a problem with people carrying weapons? No. Do I would have preferred not to, but my story was my wife said to me she felt unsafe. I was talking with a brother right before I got on the phone, and we were having this conversation, and I told him what we were going to talk about today, and he said to me, that's why he got his, because his wife said the exact same thing to him, that she felt unsafe. And when my wife said that, I'm a big guy.
Sure.
I don't really have a lot of fear about people, but I didn't know how to take that because it hit me a particular way that my wife felt she didn't feel secure. And so she went and got a concealed weapons permit. Now in Georgia, you don't have to take a class. You just fill out the paperwork and pass the background check, and they expect you to do it on your own. You don't have to take a class to get the weapon. But so, she took the class, went through it. Plus, we're military trained, so that wasn't that big of a difference for her. But I think with that in mind, I always had the thought that how could a person of faith, this was years ago, how could a person of faith, or why would a person of faith need a gun?
And I think we have to look at this truly in a realistic way, because, for example, James talked about faith and work. I can have faith that I make it a job, but if I don't go out there, day to day trying to find a job, I'm not going to get a job. I can say, Lord, I want a job, but if I don't actually be paying myself to find a job, then it's not upon my way because I have faith. But I think faith and action goes hand to hand. I think that, I have faith. Like I said, I don't live in fear that if I walk out my house, something's going to happen to me. I don't live that way. But I think that we have to truly look at what's going on around us, what's going on in society, and for protection, for self-protection, self-defense. If someone chooses to carry a gun, get a concealed permit, then I think it's okay. And I don't think that they do so that is because they have a lack of faith that God's not going to protect them. There's been too many examples over the years that we know where and the most recent one, Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, Ruth walks in, have Bible study with these people, and then he takes out a gun and shoot them. If I remember right, it was when Martin Luther King's mother that got shot in the church.
She got shot in the church.
Many years ago. Part of my duty as an ATF agent is go to work arson cases. So we work fires, and then probably like in the 2000, 2001, 2002, there was a series of arson fires with churches going on. So there are things that happen in the faith community where I think that certainly the people there should use protection. And I want to say I'm thinking of just this now, Reverend folks, about there was the deacons back in
the deacons of the
concept of deacons
the deacons of defense.
Of defense?
Yeah, I think it was in Alabama.
And what did they do?
They carry rifles.
Right. Yeah. So because right, because they knew what was going on with certainly the KKK going after church, because certainly we know in the civil rights movement, and even prior to that, Black people met in church. That's where a lot of things happen. A lot of meetings took place. We know through the civil rights movement, Black people met in the church. So they know they did this to protect the church. So it's not a question of faith. It's just a question of being realistic about what's going on, because things happen. Unfortunately, they happen, and sometimes whether you're in a church or not, somebody can come in with a gun, rob the church, things like that. So what do you do? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was wondering because you when you first started, you said the faith and the works, kind of
Yes.
referring to James, faith
Yes.
without works is dead, being alone.
Right.
So how do you kind of make that statement to some of the denominations? Let's say folks like the Lutherans and the Presbyterian folk who say that we have a faith over works anyway. Like, we don't need the works as much as we need the faith. I have faith that God will not allow anything to come to me. So the practical need for a gun should be absolved.
Yes. It's kind of interesting, because, I guess ever since Martin Luther, the reformer, tacked his 97 thesis on the door of Canterbury, many, many years ago. So there's always this consistent battle between the Protestant churches, and those that fell under it, the Lutheran, Episcopal, things like that, and the Catholic Church, because, they get into the faith part of it, where I have faith, so I don't need the other part of it. But to me, I think you clearly, they go hand in hand. I can have faith in something, but I think the actions and work goes with it, because I can't. I have faith in God, but I just can't sit at home and not do anything. For example, on behalf of other people, there are services based on your faith and based on you wanting to serve God. You want to serve Yahshua, Jesus Christ. So to me, they just go hand in hand. The faith aspect of it and the works aspect of it, it goes hand in hand to me, because I just can't sit at home and not use the talents God has gave me, or, like I said, individuals as well, to do the work to build up the kingdom of heaven here on earth. And that's a battle that's been going on for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I've had to come to a kind of theological renewal, for lack of a better term, of how about the faith and the works and how that plays out. Because I think as Black folk, I don't know if we can afford to just say, I'm just going to trust God. Now, I believe not, and I don't want that to be misconstrued. But I can't remember who wrote the book. They said this nonviolent stuff will get you killed. It's a book about how folks had guns in the South because they understood prayer with heavy intentions, but they also knew, if I don't have this rifle, this Klan member can come into my house whenever they feel the need to.
Yes.
And I need to find some type of existential threat for them, that once they hit that door, they make sure that they don't ever want to hit that door again.
Right.
And prayer works, but it may not always work like you want it to work.
Right.
And that may sound sacrilegious, but I think as Black folk, I don't know if we have the luxury to be so understanding and committed in a way that has us turning the other cheek. And that may sound blip to some folk, but I really believe that we can believe, we can have faith, we can pray for peace, but we can also carry weapons.
Right. I agree with you in terms of assessment, because, for example, I have a weapon, like I said, I carry sometimes I don't. I don't carry with intent to go out and do something. I carry it, to me, it's a last resort too, because I'm certainly going to try to de-escalate, talk my way out of it, back out of things like that. But push the shove then to defend my life, my wife's life, my family, things like that, then yes, I'm going to do that. Certainly, someone breaks into my house, I'll say a quick prayer, but then I'm going to go reach my shotgun, or something like that, So I think that it's just that, the faith and trust in God is good, but we also need understand. Like I agree in terms of. I think sometimes with Black people, and I don't know if for example, like you mentioned, turn the other cheek, that we should do that. But I think that we certainly should prepare ourselves and be ready in case something does happen. Because the other side, and I say the other side when I'm talking, my Caucasian brothers and sisters, they've been preparing for a race war since we were free. So and we're behind. We really are behind. As a former ATF patient, I know right now they have more guns than us. They do. We're slowly catching up, but they have more guns than us right now because we were just, I want to say we were relaxed, but we were not thinking like it the way they were thinking about it. That okay, if something goes on, what they've done, we know throughout history, they rally their troops, and they're ready to fight. And we can look at January 6th. We had 3 or 4 different groups of white supremacist, subversive groups, the Boogaloo Boys, the Proud Boys, like that. They're amassing right now. And what are we doing as a group of people as well? I'm not saying that we should amass as a group, but certainly we should be prepared and be ready to defend ourselves for in case something's happened. Prayerfully that it won't, because I pray that it does not. But we certainly should be ready.
Right. I agree. And I think that is something that we may have not done, we haven't done, as you said, that we haven't really taken the time to see the need for guns, because scripturally, we've used this scripture, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And what happened with me when I remember I was literally walking somewhere. I don't remember exactly where I was, but I remember thinking about that scripture, and I said, vengeance is not protection. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Like that, they're not the same. So if I'm protecting my family, however, through any means, or myself, that's not vengeance. I'm not going home, sitting down, thinking about and plotting how I'm now going to retaliate for the harm done to me. I'm kind of coming back at you in the moment. And so we see that type of protecting ourselves. Go ahead.
No, and I agree, because I was trying to think of some scripture references to it as well, and I kind of looked up a couple of things. And one of the things that first came to mind when I thought about this, and it's funny and it's not funny, is that when Jesus was in the garden and the temple guards came to arrest him with the chief priests and the scribes, what did Peter do? Peter pulled out his dagger and cut off the ear of one of the temple guards. So here's Peter, the main man of Jesus, walking around with Jesus, the Christ, seeing his works and miracle, yet he's still carrying a dagger. Why?
Yep.
I think part of some of the history of Peter, if the tradition tells us, was a zealot.
Zealot, right?
On the authority of the Roman government. So here Peter and who else of those apostles were carrying daggers, carrying a weapon, that they used back in the day. So here we are in present day. The best weapon for us is to have a firearm as opposed to a knife, because you don't bring a knife to a gunfight.
Right.
So, but that's one thing I thought about. It's like I said, it's kind of funny, but it's not funny because the scripture tells us that's what happened.
Well, it's also when you look at when Jesus says, "Look, we're going to this part of you're going to the west side. Let's just say, like, we're going over here to the west side. Look, give up your tunics and go get some more swords."
Yeah.
Because they had extra money that had, that folks had donated, so they had some extra loot. And Jesus is like, yo, you don't need no more clothes. We need to get some more protection. Now, this is Jesus making this claim. Now, my New Testament scholars may differ with my interpretation on that, but I can't see it any other way from what I have learned, looked at, and studied. That was exactly what it was about: protection. It wasn't about anything else. And I think we have to be very careful to kind of weigh people down that carrying a weapon is anti-faith.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that because it's I think it's realistic, has and it's just something that you may need protection at some point. Prayerfully, you never will. You know, even as a law enforcement officer, I was involved in one shooting in a 34-year career, and I did not want that to happen then, and I certainly prayed that I would not get involved in another one. I had actually discharged my firearm. I think that's be prepared, but it could take something away from my faith that I have a gun. Like certainly when I travel, I take it certainly when I travel a lot up and down the highways, things like that. But when I go to Columbia, I don't take my gun when I feel like I have to run to Walmart. I don't do that. If I go someplace else, maybe I will. For example, the alarm at church went off one night at 12 midnight. So yeah, I got up and got my gun and I went there just to see what was going on. It's false alarm, But I just think that it's just it's to me it's not a question of faith. It really is not.
So, I know we had talked about this earlier a little bit, but what does protection look like in our times right now, especially when we see the young brother Dante Wright, and
Yes.
We see the trial going on with George Floyd, and what does protection and faith mean in those type of chaotic times when this young brother is shot? And I say protecting himself, because I'm at the point, and I tell my son this, that hey, I want you to get home safe.
Yes.
all the I had three. We have four older boys above 19, and then my daughter 10. But I tell them, get home safe.
Yes.
But whatever you need to do to protect your dignity and your ego, not your ego, but your dignity, do that, because that's what protection is. And one of the boys he carries a weapon, but I tell him, keep it safe, keep it locked in the glove compartment,
right.
Whatever you have to do.
Right.
But in this moment, as a 34 years in law enforcement and a pastor, what does this protection look like now from your perspective, or mean from your perspective?
Well, I think we have to just separate the law enforcement aspect for one, because, for example, if I'm stopped by a law enforcement officer, certainly we're gonna try to do the hands and wheels and things like that. So carrying a gun, to have a gun in that situation, for example, because concealed weapon permit people, a police officer come there, driver's license, registration, things like that. I have a concealed weapon permit. I have a gun with me. It's in the glove box, things like that, to let them know. And hopefully they don't react like the police officer did with Philando Castile, several years ago, because the guy had a concealed weapon permit and he told him he had one. Because to me, when you say I have a concealed weapon permit, that police officer should know that, one, you had a background check done and that you went through some training for it, and that you can legally carry that gun. So I know that sometimes they get their tension can rise. Somebody say I got a gun, especially as a black person, black male, but at least they should tell them that. But I think that's a separate issue for far as us, having going around whatever city we're in and having a gun on us for protection. I think that we can do it, but not to the point where I don't want to have a gun and be aggressive. I don't want to have a gun and say and feel confident there's nothing going to happen to me because I got a gun, on my side. I don't want to see an argument, over there. I'm going to get involved with it because I got a gun. Sometimes the best thing you do is just to be a witness to it, or even if I get into a conversation, a road rage thing, I may have it ready, hidden out of sight, but I don't want to just automatically come out and flash my gun, because you still want to try to back out of the situation, at least, where it does not escalate to the point where you have to use it. Defend yourself, absolutely, but I don't want to be the person. I don't think that we should be the person that are the aggressive with that. So I think that's the one of the critical things, or important things, that if we have it, if we carry it, that we're not the aggressor. We're not going to involve ourselves in something, where point where, okay, I got a gun, I feel confident, I can handle myself, things like that. Instead, I think we should try to back off, de-escalate it. But if it comes down, you have to defend yourself, then that's what you do.
Right. I agree 100%. My last question is this. I've worked in churches and worked with churches, and then I work with security companies who provided protection at churches. And what is your take on having your members who conceal weapon carry in the church? Because in South Carolina, it's actually against the law unless you get permission from leadership to carry in churches.
Right.
What is your take on having folks with concealed weapons in the church? Do you think that's good, bad, up or down, right or left?
I think it's good. But I do think you're right. They should sit down with the pastor, the minister, and say, "Hey, look, I got my concealed weapon permit, and I want to carry it to church," and let the pastor say yay or nay.
Right.
Because he can, like you said, if he says so, then yes. Or if pastor say no, but put it in the car, then if something happens, maybe break to your car. But I think that I'm okay with it. But definitely, you got to let the pastor know that I have a concealed weapon permit, I have a firearm, and I like to take with me to come to church. Because I do know that there are some churches that, like, they have the security officers, who have a gun, but they're in a uniform. I do know a couple of pastors in Columbia that they have, like, for example, somebody who works at Richland County Sheriff's Department, so he can carry a gun because he's a certified law enforcement officer in South Carolina, or someone with Columbia Police Department. They're certified law enforcement officer. So people in the church know them, so they know this guy probably got a gun. But in terms of, just in terms of a member, yes, but sit down, talk to the pastor, have that conversation with them, that I'm not going to, be the aggressor and thing like that. But so the pastor can say yes, that you can do that.
Yeah, because I am very aware of, and that's just being in the military. I had a bad experience doing a terrorist training. So I don't really like sitting in the back with my back to the door. So I'm very aware of that. But I actually did a training in a church, and one of the things that the guy who was leading the training said is that if you have concealed weapon folks in your church, they all need to meet. And if you have a security person there, that person needs to meet with them too. Yeah. So if an intruder comes in, the security team doesn't shoot the person with the concealed weapon thinking they are an intruder.
Exactly.
And I think that is it stuck with me. It stuck with me very strongly, because I don't know if we're I think, as you said earlier, we have faith that this won't happen to our church.
Right.
And we have too many instances like Mother Emanuel where our classmate, or my classmate, Clemente Pinckney was murdered.
Yeah.
And a few other and 8 other people. So I don't have a problem if people say they're against it, but I think we need to be mindful that everybody does not have the same intentions as most of us, or many of us.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And because what you said kind of remind me, like, for example, when I was working, when I traveled, if I board an airplane, of course, you have to fill out paperwork. They carry a weapon. So if there was more than one agent on the plane, the stewards would say, okay, so sitting in the 1B, he has a weapon. He's also an all-force officer. Or there's a U.S. Marshal on the plane, then they let him know that he's there, that he knows that I'm there. So right, something happened, you know, if I pull up and try to do something, okay, I'm a law enforcement officer. That's a good point that you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, brother, I appreciate the conversation. Before we go, I do this one thing. I don't tell anybody until they come on.
Yes.
There's one thing before we go.
Oh.
And I know you're an avid sports fan, so I'll give you a different type of question, different type of
Okay.
opportunity. Before we get out of here, I want you to I need your top 5 athletes of all time.
Of all time.
Yeah, I know you're an avid sports fan. Okay, Muhammad Ali. They don't have to be in no order now.
Muhammad Ali. Right. Muhammad Ali. I've got to put Tiger Woods in Serena Williams. I'll put Don Staley there because Naismith Hall of Fame college player coach.
Yeah.
Who else?
Yeah.
Who else can I throw in there?
That's 4.
Gosh, I know that's 4. Who else? I hate to give him credit, but I have to go Tom Brady. Because of championships.
Okay.
I'm necessarily like him, but I got to give him credit.
All right.
He got 7, so yeah.
I'll give you a pass on Tom Brady.
Thank you. Yeah. I hate the Patriots, man, but you can't give them that credit.
Oh man, Hey brother, I appreciate the conversation. Hey everybody, tune in Thursday. We'll be back with the brothers talking about Toni Morrison, the origin of others. But as always, remember to survive, cultivate joy, resist, and stay dope. We'll see you then. Thursday at 5. Y'all take care.